Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Charleston, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we have an interesting episode for you guys you definitely want to stick around for. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, there was some interesting news to come out of the NBA yesterday via Adam Silver's. He spoke about the potential of, the NBA expanding, meaning bringing more teams to the league in markets such as Seattle and Las Vegas. He spoke about the fact that may be a $2.5 billion price tag per team to be able to do that. But he stated that it wasn't something that was coming down the turnpike at the moment. It wasn't on, the top of the list of their agenda of things that they need to get done. He also spoke about the All-NBA voting. As y'all know, this current All-NBA voting that just passed, this round of voting that we saw Joel Embiid get omitted from the All-NBA first team because they could only have one center, so he ended up making the second team. And a lot of people were up in arms about that, saying, how can the runner-up for the MVP not make it on the All-First NBA team? So they're out there basically talking about ways of tweaking the voting system to make sure that the best players get rewarded with the All-First NBA team selection. But the biggest topic that he talked about was the NBA scheduling, right? The NBA schedule. And according to a report from CBSSports.com, we want to read a little bit of some of the things that he had to say about that. So let me just get into the article here. Starts off with this particular headline: changes to NBA schedule. The NBA has been toying around with several ways to tweak the schedule for years. When the league restarted after the shutdown in the summer of 2020, we got to see what it would look like having NBA games played over the course of the summer. Last season, the league cut 10 games from the schedule and started the week of Christmas to give players a bit more rest after the Orlando bubble. However, the league went back to its usual scheduling this season with no notable changes. While some players would like to see a reduction in games in order to limit the rise in injuries we've been seeing, if a change were to come, it may happen in the form of a in-season tournament. I think the way we're trying to look at it now is, instead of reducing the number of games, we're thinking we are thinking from a competitive standpoint. Is there a way to improve that? To many people in a long regular season, Silver said. And one of the ways we're thinking of doing this is an in-season tournament, something we talked about a lot. We're not there yet. We continue to talk to our competitive committee about it, our team governors, the Players Association, to see if there's a way throughout the season to create more meaningful games, more games of consequence, potentially a tournament that would arguably replace some of the regular season games will be more meaningful. So essentially, that's what he had to say here. Now, it was the whole entire conversation surrounding the NBA schedule and potentially shortening the season that really got Richard Jefferson up in arms on ESPN. And he totally annihilated the modern day NBA players. So for those of you who missed his comments on ESPN, we're going to play them for you now. We're also going to play a little bit what Adam Silver had to say to give it a little bit more context, and then play his. So take a listen to that here, and then we'll come back and react to it. Take a listen to that.
I do want to get to, though, another interesting part of Commissioner Silver's press conference where he was asked about shortening the season, the possibility of that. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I'm not against potentially changing the format of the season, even possibly shortening it a bit, if we can demonstrate that that's going to have a direct impact on injuries. And, for example, last season, we played 10 fewer games and essentially had no impact. We want to make sure we have a system where our best players are incentivized to be on the floor. At the same time, we obviously don't want to see them injured. And so what we're hoping is we can all work collectively, the 30 teams together, in a non-competitive way, together with our Players Association, and figure out what is optimal on these players' bodies so that they're incentivized to play but aren't overdoing it to the extent where they end up playing too much and pushing through injuries that ends up hurting their careers.
What do you think of this, Rich?
I think this is absurd. I think this is. Let me. I just got to stretch here. This is my issue right here. Right, is that You have game readies, you have Normatex. There was years ago where players used to not travel. They would not travel commercial. We have eliminated back-to-backs. We now have a week-long all-star break instead of like 3.5 days.
Yep.
And I remember guys used to have to catch flights, play the last game on Thursday, play in the game on Sunday, and then you would have a game on Tuesday, Wednesday. They have done every single thing. Every team now has sleep staffs. They have extra training staff. You want to shorten the season? Like, how much more do we have to make this coddling and all of this stuff go with the players? It makes absolutely no sense. Professional sports is not good on your body. It's supposed to separate the people that can do it from the people that can't do it. And while we do want our best product on the floor, part of greatness is longevity. That's what Michael Jordan, that's what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, that's what LeBron James, all of these guys, we talk about their greatness over a long period of time. And to keep eliminating this and dialing back to the point where it's like there's nothing else for the players to do. I think it is a joke. I think they should never do this. Now, if you were talking about the in-season tournament, I think that's 100% maybe if you wanted to just have a little bit more space. But this right here is the epitome of coddling players to make sure that everything is okay. On top of the fact that players are taking rest days. On top of the fact that they're taking rest days right now. So how are you going to give them rest days and then say, well, we're going to shorten it to 60 games. We're going to shorten it to 70 games. At the end of the day, they're still going to take time off.
Tell them about the money.
The money. Oh, they're making all that money.
I don't think anyone else is going to be. Yeah, keep going,
These are the teams. These are the owners need to get on these. It's not just the players. Don't say the players. It's literally, I've seen guys have a thumb injury and not be able to play in back-to-back because they didn't want their conditioning to be off. Right? Like, if you have a thumb injury, you should be in conditioning. And I'm going to stop because I'm getting too excited here. But the fact that we want to talk about shortening the season now with all of this stuff, you tore your ACL. I've missed time before this. And it ain't just because of that. If guys aren't conditioning 24 hours a day to make sure that their bodies are taken care of, that's on them and that's on the team. But shortening the season, you're going to mess with records. You're going to mess with numbers. You're going to mess with so much of our basketball because this group or the way that's handled right now can't handle it. I'm off that.
I don't think that they should shorten the season for the simple example that the commissioner used. He said that, listen, we experimented with 72 games and we saw no effect on injuries. People still got injured with less games, right? So that's the first thing. If your argument is that we need to reduce the amount of games to reduce the possibility or the probability of injuries, then last season you saw that there were 10 less games and it had no effect. So if you're talking about reducing the season, to what number exactly are we talking about reducing it to? Are we talking about reducing it to 52 games, 42 games, 25 games? And how do you know that? Okay, so if you say, well, it's going to be 42 games, what makes that number? Okay, is it just an arbitrary thing you decide like, no, okay, 42 sounds right. Is there any medical evidence you're going to be using? Is there any data that you're going to be using to support that notion? Or are you just one of these people that simply says, we need to reduce the season for the sake of reducing the season? A lot of people that are out there advocating for that, but I don't really think they've come up with a sound resolution or sound proof to say, okay, these are the number of games that we need to play. I think people are just pulling numbers out of the air and saying, okay, let's play 62 or 82. Well, let's play. What about the notion of playing more games? Maybe some people say they're not enough games. So there's so many different arguments for that, and that's the point that he was making. Secondly, I think shortening the seasons will have a significant impact on records. And I think records matter. Essentially, what it means is that the guys that have played 10, 15 years under 82, under the 82 game system, those guys' stats will never be caught by greater players coming in the future because it's just not enough games. If you remove, think about this. If you remove 10 games, right, off the NBA schedule in 10 years, that's 100 games, 100 less games. So think about players trying to catch, that's a season basically you've removed. Over a season. So think about LeBron right now trying to catch Kareem. If there were only 72 games when he came into this, how is he going to catch him? He would need to play an additional year or year and a half to be able to catch this guy. And that's the type of impact it will have. So that's what Richard Jefferson was talking about when he was talking about records. And finally, I don't understand how the game is more rigorous on players now. This is an argument that I've heard with the travel, and I really don't. And listen, if you guys are going to throw out that statement or that assertion, please back it up with some, like, how is it more rigorous on their bodies when they're playing the same amount of games But now there's, players are traveling with, their teams are chartering planes now. That wasn't something in the past. You know, like as if you had to apply commercially. Now teams are having their own private planes. You heard about all of the medical assistance that teams are giving players. I think psychiatrists, massage therapy, all of these different things. You heard Richard Jefferson basically outline that. So I'm not understanding when people are saying the games are more. The games are more rigorous on the body. I mean, is it because of the tempo? But the tempo was faster in the 80s. So I don't understand. What's your point? What's the point we're trying to make here? And in the 90s, the game was more physical. So I don't understand what exactly these guys are talking about. That's the one. That's the thing there. And don't they have all of these various recovery methods? So how can it be more rigorous on your body? And finally, this is the part I want to get to. I think this whole conversation of shortening the NBA season, I believe, sends the wrong message to players. I believe it sends the wrong message to players. I am 100% convinced, and I mean this, 100% convinced that whatever limitations your mind put on your body will listen to them. I 100% believe that, and this goes beyond sports for a second. I think whenever people talk about the mind and motivation and all, I think they're only thinking about sports. No. This applies to all various activities or endeavors in life, not just sports. Sports is just because we can physically see you performing that act. But no, I think it has a larger impact. Our minds and our imaginations can greatly hinder us or propel us depending on the story we tell ourselves. I'll give you guys two quick anecdotes here. There was somebody I knew while I was in high school. Guy I knew while I was in high school. And I went to high school in art and design in New York, in Manhattan. And if anybody who's been in New York, grew up in New York, been to New York, whatever, you know Manhattan, they call it money-making Manhattan. There are a lot of rich people out there. Not all rich, but you'll find a lot of rich people. So anyway, one day, I was walking down. No, this was after. Yeah, around that time. One day I was walking down the road. I forgot where I was. I think I was close to Central Station or Penn Station, if I'm not mistaken. I was with my friend, and we saw a Lamborghini, and I was like, "Yo, man, look at that Lamborghini, bro. That's a Lamborghini. Look at that Lamborghini." And my friend turned over to me and he said, "Man, I'm not ever gonna be able to afford that, bleep." And I looked at him, and I said to myself, the moment he said that, this is what I said to myself. Now that you said it, it will never happen. You have already closed the door. And since you say you'll never have it, you shall never have it. Because that is the story you told yourself. I'll give you guys another example, since for some people that feel like I'm just here telling stories. When I was in college, Marco and I used to do these runs, right? 10K runs. And one day we were like, man, let's try to run 20K. And I'm like, how the hell are we going to run 20K when the most we've ever ran is 10K? But this particular day, we were like, we're going to run 20K. And we're going up hills, coming down hills. And at one point, we were exhausted running through the city. We were exhausted. And we looked at the thing that told us how many kilometers we ran. And we looked and we realized I think we had ran like 16 kilometers. And we were spent. I was in a lot better shape than I am now, like way better shape. And I was like, how are we going to make it to 20K? How? There are 4 more kilometers left and we are totally exhausted. Our bodies say no. I think the most we'd ever ran was like 10 or 11. We're at 16. So we're in a totally different place than our bodies used to. And we just told ourselves, let's just keep going. And we used every kind of incantation. Mark was like, keep going, keep pushing. We're like, yeah, you're talking to yeah, man, you can do it. You're saying whatever it is. And at that point, we realized it was a mind game. It was no longer about our bodies. Our bodies had reached its limit. At that point, it was about what story are you going to tell yourself to get yourself to 20K? And you better believe it, we got to 20K. And when we got to 20K, the level of satisfaction we had was indescribable. But what it also told me is that, wait a minute, there's a limit your body can get to. Your body has limits, but your mind doesn't. And if your mind tells your body to do something it's not used to, and you believe it, you can do it. So for the people talking about players can't do this, players can't do that, you don't realize the limitation you're putting on players. It's also the same limitations that people put on other people, especially parents put on kids. Oh, my she can't do that. Oh, why are you making them work so hard? Why are you making them do this? Why are you making them do? And you don't realize you're babying that person. That's what Richard Jefferson was talking about. You're actually creating weaker people. A lot of people wonder, why were our parents, why were our grandparents, why were these guys so resilient? Why are they more resilient than us? It's because they had to do more with less. It is just that simple. Imagine the mental gymnastics a statistician or an engineer had to go through when they didn't even have calculators. There's no punching it in the thing and the form. No. You had to do it with your hand. So the level of the velocity of what your mind is working at. If you talk to those people, I guarantee you they were much sharper than people are today, because their minds were crunching. Their minds had to work a lot harder. And that's the point that Richard Jefferson was making when he says, you don't realize how you're babying people. And to me, I think to a larger extent, you don't realize the limitations you're putting on people.